Yeah. We got theme music now. We're definitely establishing ourselves in the world of podcasting. Welcome to the AA Game. I'm Rob Acampora. This is episode number 2. And I'll tell you right now, as we are celebrating or just staying at home for St. Patrick's Day, and obviously it's kind of a hard thing to try to be festive in this world that we're in, but we did bring Jamesons, so I want to thank my engineer and partner Ming Chen. We'll be indulging in that a little later on. And, of course, remember, it's not Kiss Me, I'm Irish today. It's be 6 feet away from me and wave. I'm Irish. It's the only way we can do it. But thank you for spending some time with me. March sadness. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. We should be in the midst of going crazy with our bracket pools, maybe looking down at a William Hill sheet and saying, oh, okay, Duke is 8-1 to win the NCAA tournament. Maybe you're filling it out and saying, hey, you know what? I like that mascot. Nope, we're not going to get that chance. How does it affect sports on the collegiate level and all over? Well, this is where one of two parts today I'm doing. And my friend from Lynchburg, Virginia, who I used to work with at WSTW in Wilmington, Delaware, he's now the sports anchor over at ABC 13, Dave Walsh. Thanks for taking the time and bring your A game here, my friend.
Always good to talk to you, Rob, and good to catch up. We've been already talking a little bit about our old radio days and how this world's evolved a little bit. Boy, we've seen it revolve on its head about the last 2 weeks here. Jeez.
I mean, I just can't believe I'm doing it on this end. I remember when you left to say, hey, listen, I'm going to give television and sports a try. You've always been somebody who's into sports, but making the adjustment from radio to television, as I'm discovering just on a podcast, there's so many other moving parts you don't even think about. And obviously getting used to looking at a camera and not trying to look away. I mean, what was that adjustment like for you, knowing it's like, oh, I got to be in front of the camera. I know I want to be, but you got to get used to everything that's surrounded. The surroundings are so different.
Oh, the surroundings are way different. And we talked a little bit about some of the hard lessons you had to learn. And honestly, the hardest thing for me initially was remembering, oh, yeah, I've got to dress up like I'm on camera.
Right.
I have my image of my first report. You know, in radio, we just wear whatever we want because nobody's going to see us in the studio.
So
the first time I showed up, I barely had a tie tied up. My hair looked like I had just gotten out of the shower. I'd forgotten my sport jacket. My news director goes, your report was great, but you looked like crap.
What a lovely critique. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the info there, boss. But, you know, there were some tough lessons I had to learn there. But, honestly, I found that actually working in radio for as many years as you and I have has really helped prepare me, because a lot of the younger talent that we see come up into TV now, they have the on-camera side prepared, but their ability to think extemporaneously is not as developed as someone who just has a microphone and goes, here's what you got to do. You got 30 seconds. Good luck and go.
Just boom. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess this will help me in the podcast world. It's just like going, boom, I know where I want to go. I just try to keep going with it. And hopefully create something very entertaining.
Absolutely.
To dive into, I guess, the sadness of this whole thing. On so many levels, everybody loses. I understand that it was the right thing to do. You were actually on the court during the ACC tournament when that announcement came. And now, for people who don't know, they were trying to play the games without the fans in Greensboro, correct?
Correct, yes.
And then the announcement comes, and I just can imagine. I saw just on reports how some of the kids were reacting. I mean, you see the sadness. I think they got it, but at the same token, you're taking away the thing that they've been working all season for, was that chance to get to the tournament.
Yeah, it was a very... I don't know, even if in the moment they got it, I think it sunk in as the day moved along, as it kind of did for all of us. I mean, to kind of recap the day, we had 2 days of the tournament so far. In fact, because my station covers both Virginia Tech and Virginia in the ACC.
Wow, okay.
So Tuesday night, I'm there covering Virginia Tech against UNC. Wednesday it was an off day for me. Then Thursday, we roll in. There's going to be no fans in the arena. They still had the bands performing at each other, which was very weird. You know, they're literally the only people in the stands. And then Florida State's on the court warming up maybe about 8 minutes ago. And then all of a sudden, music stops, officials huddle. They say, let's all get off the court. And within 5 minutes, here comes the trophy. And the kids on the court, even for Florida State, you're claiming the conference championship, and they didn't know how to react. Like, is this good? Did we actually win this? It's nothing we've seen before, and it's just very bizarre, especially because this ACC tournament I felt was just super wide open. Florida State had lost to Virginia, had lost to Duke, and yet everybody had kind of beaten everybody this year. And so nobody really knew who was going to be in the upper echelon, and we were waiting for the tournament. So when Florida State claims it, it was almost a half-hearted, I guess we did it. And
Right.
for everybody else, it was just what could have been.
You stumbled on a great point because when I was looking at this tournament, the only teams that I saw in Florida State in, I had Virginia in, I had Duke in, I had Louisville in. On the bubble, clearly North Carolina State, maybe Georgia Tech because they were on a 4-game winning streak coming in. If they managed to win 3 games, maybe the committee gives them the nod because they got 20 wins, they won 7 of their last 8. But the rest of the conference, it was like you said, everybody's beating everybody else. There was a lot in the middle, not a lot in the upper. And then there were some disappointments. I mean, I'd have to put Virginia Tech and North Carolina as the 2 big disappointments of the ACC. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely would. Virginia Tech was a team that was extremely young coming in with a new head coach. In fact, during ACC Media Day, it was Mike Young who came over from Wofford. One of the questions I asked him was, what are your expectations of this young team? They were young. They were small as well. Everybody knew they were challenged in height. And he gave me probably the best soundbite I've had in a year. He goes, look, are we going to give full effort? Yes. Are we going to be any good? Probably not, but
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. God bless you, coach, for giving me the soundbite. But at the same time, we saw the young team come together a little bit. They won a lot of those non-conference games, really turned some heads. But when you're relying on freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores to do the bulk of your work, you're going to go through those struggles. And they, unfortunately for them, they hit it the second half of the season. That's for UNC, just snake bitten with injuries all year long.
Yeah,
Cole
they
Anthony
never really did
finally,
recover from all that, did they? Yeah. And even though they started too late, but it was like, you're getting on a win streak of about 3 games, but that's all they seem to get going. They could never get that 5 or 6 game clip where they were going, here we go, now we may make a run at least to try to get to the NIT.
Oh, yeah. And again, when you have a team like that, who is as talented as UNC, you still need that time to build that chemistry to know I'm going to throw the ball here and my guy's going to be in position. You never saw UNC get that all year long, and God bless Roy Williams for staying as positive as he could. I know it was a hard year for fans down at Chapel Hill, but that's a team that they stick together next year. I think we'll be back to where we are used to seeing them.
Dave Walsh from ABC 13 in Lynchburg, Virginia, my guest on the A Game right now. Virginia technically is still the national champions because we don't have a tournament. I mean, as crazy as that is to say, they get to keep it. And yet, this is a team that I was so intrigued by coming into this. We go back 2 years ago, the most embarrassing loss in NCAA history. No 2 ways around it. Right. I think Coach Tony Bennett handled that situation about as well as you could when you have a loss like that. Then you turn around and win the whole damn thing. And this year's team, young, only a couple seniors in the lineup, but they played well. So 2 questions. One, is Tony Bennett right now potentially the best coach in NCAA basketball? And second, because they were denied this chance of the tournament, we don't know where they would have been. If they had peaked, could this have been the team that could have gotten back to at least the Elite 8, you think?
Let's start with the Tony Bennett question. I don't think there's any doubt if he's not the coach in NCAA basketball, he's certainly in that elite group with a Coach K like that. There's
That's
no
high praise right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, because he takes players who maybe, would be around here and elevates them to the next level and does so in a positive manner. We've seen coaches, on the sideline ranting and raving at players. That's not a Tony Bennett way. He's going to talk you up, but he's never been a negative guy to deal with. Even like you said, when they go through that UMBC loss, which I still remember being on the sidelines for that, and we're texting everybody else going, can you believe what we're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, everybody in that place had to be just completely stunned. Like, we never thought in a million years we'd actually see one of the last teams, as far as ranking goes, get in the tournament, a 16 seed, beat the number 1, or let's say one of the top 4 teams in college basketball. Yeah, never in our lifetime we thought it was going to happen.
And also a Virginia team that fans forget 2 years ago was the best team in the country as far as defense goes. Offense, sure, everybody goes through little shooting slumps, and Tony Bennett's team have never been known as, putting up high amounts of points on the board, but they had shut down the best of the best in the ACC, claiming the conference championship, blah, blah, blah. And you go, this is a foregone conclusion. They're at least going to be Elite 8 Final Four. And UMBC all of a sudden comes out, and you just see Tony Bennett doesn't lose his cool, talking his players up, and even afterwards, that has to be embarrassing for him, and for the next full year, even up through the Final Four. After every game, the national media is there, and that's all they want to talk about, UMBC. And I think a lesser coach would have probably lost their cool at some
Really good
point.
point there, Dave.
Yeah.
Really good point. I mean,
Yeah.
that says a lot about the character that he could handle all of this because he knew he was going to be bombarded every step of the way. And it was really until he got to claim the national championship for the kids. And he's just been basking in it ever since. But it's got to be a weird feeling for everybody in Virginia to kind of go, wow, we still have the title, but how do you feel? You know, it's going to be that weird feeling of coming in next year and kind of going, yeah, but there's something amiss. You know what I mean by when I say amiss.
Yeah, I do know that. And as much as we're joking and saying, they're still the champs,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know that the team is necessarily hanging on to that. It's certainly, the other part of your question was, how far would this team have gone? I don't know, but I was really intrigued to see that because this is a team who maybe through the end of January was slumping, and I was going, boy, I don't like the way this is going. And then the thing that was missing all year long, when you had a Ty Jerome, a Kyle Guy, you had DeAndre Hunter, you had these big, powerful leaders who, all right, strap onto their backs. We're going to ride this thing all the way to the Final Four. Right. You didn't necessarily have that in the first half of the season. You had Braxton Key, they brought over from Alabama, who, as good of a player as he was, not necessarily a leader. And then Kihei Clark, the small point guard who had been there for the Final Four but didn't have to shoulder as much of the load. They really needed some time to warm up and get into those roles. But then once February came, we saw their fortunes really turn around, not only hot shooting, but clutch situations. We saw Kihei Clark hit some daggers against Virginia Tech. You go down to it's going to hit me now. I want to say it was Duke or NC State. It was one of those conference games. Again, we saw quite a few late game buzzer beaters, pressure situations that teams that haven't been there before would have crumbled in. And now we've seen the confidence. And again, Mamadi Diakite, who came back for his senior year, again, got off to a slow start in the center and then all of a sudden became a blocking machine over the last 2 weeks of the season. Not only that, but also putting up the type of points you would want your big center to put up. So this is a team that was riding high and full of confidence, also having beaten Duke and Charlottesville the first time, I believe, in about 7 years.
Yeah, that's true.
So confidence couldn't have been higher. And the projections I saw had Virginia at a 6th seed, but if they performed at the level they're capable of for the ACC tournament, I think that easily would have gone up.
Another team in Virginia that is intriguing is Liberty because they had a 30-win season. They were a 12 seed last year, pulled off the upset over Mississippi State. I feel for them like a lot of these small schools. They battle the whole year to try to get to that one point so they can have that one game and that one moment in the spotlight, whether it's on CBS or TNT or TBS, to play on the national stage. I mean, Liberty had one national game. That was against LSU, not their best game. But overall, nobody got in their way. They were that team that I saw probably going to come back as a 12 seed because of what they did last year. They ran through the Atlantic Sun. And to me, that was one of those teams I go, if I'm filling out my bracket, do I put them into the Sweet 16? They're kind of that, I'm not sure. I think they can pull the upset again. But how far can they go? Because they had Vanderbilt, not their best year, but still you played a team from the Southeast Conference and got the win, and you had LSU. Otherwise, they really weren't pushed. I hate to say it that way because the way they rolled through the Atlantic Sun, even though they were upset a couple times, I don't think they were pushed.
And I don't necessarily disagree with you about that. And you look at their losses. Take away LSU because again, not their best game.
Right.
But you look at their losses in the Atlantic Sun. Their loss to Stetson. The shots were there. They just rimmed out a lot of them. They only scored, I think, 15 points in the second half against Stetson. And meanwhile, Florida State, it's a 1-point buzzer beater to North Florida. Right. And so you look at those 2 losses and you go. What? And then Lipscomb is the end of the regular season. They've already clinched the basically the regular season title.
Right.
Doesn't really mean anything. I hate to say it like that, but really at that point you go, whatever. We're gonna get there. We got the 1 seed.
Right.
So you're right. They never really were pushed. But if you saw this team compared to last year's team, which makeup wise was almost identical, they brought back Caleb Holmesley, Scotty James. We've saw much increased focused on the offensive side of the ball and also selflessness. You look at a post player like Scotty James, who was 17, 18 points a game, easily the big inside threat This year, his numbers actually went down, but his assist numbers went up, and we saw more 3-point shooting from younger players like Darius McGee on the outside, Elijah Cuffey. And you saw the point totals go up, where last year, Liberty went on a little bit more of a roller coaster ride in conference play and even in non-conference play. Certainly, they won the division, but at the same time, there were some closer games involved. This year, with the exception of just one or two cold shooting nights, we saw Liberty perform at a level we hadn't seen them perform, and defensively, much more dominant. The ASUN title was never in question in the finals against Lipscomb. So, yeah, this was a team I was very intrigued about. I think we all thought maybe 11 or 12 seed again, like you said. And then definitely a team that, if they performed at that level, could have easily gotten one win, depending on the draw, maybe even into the Sweet 16. And like you said, for these younger schools, this is lightning in a bottle. Yeah. This isn't like a Duke where you go, we'll reload, we'll come back next year.
Right.
You never know when you're going to get that chance to come back, and it's never going to be the same, even if you do. So I really do feel for these
You are
players.
setting me up for my next question beautifully, because there's been a lot of discussion with the NCAA talking about the idea of maybe giving a special dispensation to some of these seniors to have them come back. Now, let's play it out. Let's say they get that with Liberty. That would mean Caleb Hensley, your leading scorer, 15 points a game. Scotty James, who's sort of your enforcer, 11 points, almost 8 rebounds a game. And then I'll even throw in Georgie Pacheco-Ortiz, who was also a key contributor. If you bring back these three seniors, and you basically have the same team from a year before, how dangerous could Liberty be even next year if they have these guys coming back? You basically have the nucleus. And 34-0. I mean, I don't want to go that crazy, but I mean, if a couple shots roll here and there, they could go on a hell of a run if they can get that dispensation.
Yeah, but that's the tricky part here. Again, you bring that core back on paper, you go, boy, they're a cinch to lock this up. But you also got to look at everybody stayed healthy this year. Caleb Hensley is a man who has had 2 knee surgeries before. I'll never forget. I believe it was his sophomore year. They're playing against Princeton. He goes up for a rebound, lands, and then the arena falls silent as he's screaming on the floor in pain, and had to miss a whole year for knee surgery, his second one. He had blown out his right one, I believe, in high school, and now blew out his left one in college, or reverse that. But he's blown both out. You never know. And again, that's why I say lightning in a bottle, but certainly on paper, you bring them both back. That's fantastic. The one question I still have about this whole relief thing, and this goes for both winter sports and even if you want to talk about spring sports,
please,
is the recruiting problem. So if you're a senior in high school, what do you do? Or if you've redshirted this year, is there any sort of relief for you? Because now you're expecting, okay, I'm ready to come into this program. I'm ready to make my impact. Does the NCAA loosen up their limits on how many players you can have on a roster? What if all of a sudden the position you thought was going to be there now is not there for you anymore? Hey, we're going to hang on to this senior who's coming back for a 6th year because of relief. How does that change things? Those are the questions I think we still need to explore as everybody deals with this. I don't know that there's an easy answer, but it's certainly something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, because it made me immediately think that, well, based on what you're saying, it's almost like you have to give everybody a pass. And that means everybody keeps their eligibility for another year due to this extenuating circumstances. And I don't know if that can actually work. Like you said, then there's the scholarship issues. There's limited scholarships at a place like Liberty. There's going to be more scholarships at Virginia, of course. But it's still a matter of figuring out, well, how do we work the scholarships? And then the high school kids that are coming out, do they suffer because of this? So there is 2 sides of this equation, and it is very tricky. So great points you're bringing out here, Dave. I appreciate that. When it comes to Liberty, there was a tweet that came out, and I want to get your take on this. I got to dig it up again. I had this. It was by the assistant coach. Brad Suki had put out an interesting tweet, and I think he was doing it more out of frustration than anything else. It came out 5 days ago. You may have seen this, but let me read this. Been a college coach for 25 years. Excuse me. I'm asking the NCAA to reconsider their decision of not allowing fans at the games. The data doesn't support this, and he goes on to spout some data about the coronavirus. Brad hasn't done anything in 5 days. I can understand maybe in the heat of the moment he was trying to make a point. Has there been anything that's come out of Liberty where they kind of talked to Brad? I mean, I get the feeling he was trying to protect his players more than anything else. He feels bad that they can't play. He's trying to say that they should play. And I haven't heard anything from head coach Richie McKay in this whole situation. Has there been anything come out of this?
We've heard just little tweets, little bits here and there. And I think in reference to that tweet about Brad Tosi, who, by the way, is one of the nicest men you will ever meet in college basketball, really is. Think about where we were 5 days ago when that tweet was.
Exactly.
We didn't know where this was. And I don't think we've ever seen news and society progress so fast is where we are now. 5 days ago,
Right.
there were probably more people go, we're over exaggerating. One or two people get sick with this thing. And now all of a sudden it has progressed and progressed. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. So I think it was a little bit more out of frustration than anything else. As far as Richard McKay goes, the team has really kind of hunkered down and kept to themselves. I have spoken to a few of the players. In fact, I had dinner with one of the players last night just at a local restaurant I was going to pick up, and he happened to be there. And, it's obviously disappointing, but, at least for Liberty, and not every conference has gotten this, they were able to win their conference championship. One of the benefits of being in one of these mid-tier conferences is the fact that they held it earlier. In fact, they even got to win it on their home floor. The last game ever at the Vine Center in Lynchburg, and they were able to close it out with a sellout crowd of nearly 8,000 fans. That's something that most of these conferences and the seniors on those teams did not get a chance. So while there's disappointment, they know they had it in them. At the same time, I think they feel fortunate that they at least had that opportunity to at least put some sort of a stamp on the season and go, you know what, we didn't get to the tournament, but we earned this trophy.
This is Dave Walls from ABC 13 in Richmond, Virginia. He is the sports anchor over there. He is bringing his A game to the A game here. We're going to get ready to wrap up, but I always like to round up with some random shots. I've done some deep diving on Dave's Twitter feed, and his Twitter feed has been blowing up a little bit today. This has been an interesting day. By the way, happy St. Patrick's Day, and cheers to you on that.
Cheers to you, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, Jameson Black Barrel. Oh, that is good.
Oh.
Yeah, very appropriate for St. Patrick's Day. All right, I'm going to start with these are your tweets over the last day or so. Okay. I'll start with this one. WrestleMania will go on, but be moved to the WWE Performance Center. Your feeling on that, because I watched a little bit on TV just without the crowd. It felt weird.
It felt weird, but in another sort of way, I kind of liked it, especially the in-ring segments where they're doing the interviews. Right. It had a very old school feel to it. I watching, I think it was the Bray Wyatt segment with John Cena where he's trying to build the creepy dark fiend character.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was all into that because there's no crowd noise, there's no signs, and you're just focused on him and his voice. I dug that. Now, at the same time, WrestleMania is an event that's all about the pageantry, the showmanship, the 70, 80, 100,000 in the stands. That's going to be very, very weird looking at that, but can't tell you I'm not going to be watching. That's going to be exciting.
Tweet number 2. It's huge. It's NFL news. And you tweeted about the announcement about Brady, who's not coming back to New England. Now, in the last 24 hours, we have seen, Teddy Bridgewater signs with the Carolina Panthers. Marcus Mariota is now a Las Vegas Raider. Phillip Rivers, as of a couple of hours ago, is now an Indianapolis Colt. There are rumors they're saying that Brady's going to Tampa Bay, according to TMZ. Yeah. I still think is that true at this point from what your sources are saying?
I don't really have confirmation. I was actually just speaking with some TV reporters down in the Tampa Bay area. That's what they're hearing as well. They've got some contacts inside the Bucs organization. We don't, but you know how rumors go.
Of course.
Yeah, but at the moment that could be happening. It wouldn't be the first time somebody goes down to Florida to retire. But the question now is, if that's the case, is that enough for Tampa Bay to become a serious contender? And I don't know.
I had Phillip Rivers going there because he moved the family to Florida. I thought that was an obvious fit for him to go to Tampa.
Yeah,
I was kind of surprised.
I'm with you on that. That I either had him at Indy or Tampa Bay, but I would have leaned towards Tampa. Yeah.
Put absolutely. On your GM hat then for a second. You're the GM of the New England Patriots. Is it trade up in the draft to get one of the quarterbacks, or maybe because again the relationship with Gruden and Carr in the Raiders organization, I'm not feeling that love. Do you maybe make the phone call to Las Vegas and see if you can get Carr to come to the New England Patriots?
I think Carr is expendable if you're at the Patriots. You've just gone all, you've given Carr enough time with the Raiders organization that now, if he's cut, you've given him the shot. And at the same time, Belichick has proved that he could take a quarterback who many have written off and elevate them to a standard which maybe they've never played at before. See Matt Castle, when all of a sudden, he steps up and all of a sudden he's signing a multi-million-dollar contract with, I think it was the Chiefs. I can't remember.
I think you're
anymore.
right. It was the Kansas City Chiefs. Good memory.
Yeah, but I mean, you've seen Castle, Garoppolo, all these young quarterbacks who nobody had really heard of before develop in New England. And now if you bring in someone who's got somewhat of a pedigree to him, like a Carr, Belichick could really elevate him. And now if you're going to put your eggs in the Marcus Mariota basket, time to get some value out of him.
Tweet number 3. Interesting. College football and Kentucky Derby on the same day. Now, I didn't even think about that when they made the announcement. If you missed it, Kentucky Derby's being moved to September 5th. I understand why they're moving it, but moving it to the opening weekend of the NFL.
That one caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
And the other question that admittedly, I have been off Twitter the last 2 hours or so. Does that mean we're doing the running of the Triple Crown in a different order? Because usually it's Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and then we end with the kind of marathon of Belmont. Does that mean now we're going to end it with a sprint? And that I'm not sure about that yet. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm kind of a traditionalist. I'm all about it because to me the Kentucky Derby kind of launches that season. I can't, and I've been to the Preakness. I know you've been to the Preakness because we both work close to the Baltimore area. A great thing. I just don't feel the Preakness really should be the opener of the Triple Crown season. It's always my old Kentucky home, mint julep in hand, let's go.
And I've always liked the progression of the races because, like you said, the Derby is a sprint. The Preakness, slightly longer, and it kind of sets the stage for this big marathon, mile and a half Belmont, which really separates the men from the boys. And I feel like Belmont first is going to eliminate a lot of these contenders who may shine in a Kentucky Derby like atmosphere. So I don't know how we're going to do that yet.
And last tweet, but it's a two-parter. I'm going to start with the tweet you just did within the last 24 hours. Breaking NASCAR postpones races through May 3rd. Now planning on resuming on May 9th. Martinsville Motor Speedway in Virginia. How psyched will the fans be in Virginia if this is sort of if they can get it together? Because we still don't know. We're sort of still in this limbo period of whether or not they can get this thing going by May 9th. Let's say they can.
Okay.
We're expecting it would just be the ultimate party, I would think, at that point, if they could have it.
Oh, yeah. In fact, the stage was already set for this to be one of the bigger races in Martinsville because it's going to be under the lights. You remember Martinsville is one of the last NASCAR Cup tracks to actually add lights. 2-3 years ago, all the races were daytime. In fact, the last daytime race they had, Jeff Gordon took the lead late, and it was getting dark, and they said, boys, we got to finish this in about the next 10 minutes, or that's it, we're calling it off, because it was so dark you couldn't see it on TV. Wow. So the stage was already set for a big event. And then, NASCAR means a lot to these towns and communities, but especially Martinsville, the oldest track on the circuit. Martinsville is such a small town that sounds cliche, but it really is. It comes alive for these Cup Series races. So now if you've got, oh my gosh, NASCAR is finally back. The spotlight is on us. I mean, Martinsville could use that more than ever. NASCAR fans would absolutely love it. That would be a fun night race to watch. That could be a big, big spectacle to be back on TV, to welcome some form of sports back into our lives.
And I want to go back to a tweet you sent out on February 17th, because I plead bravo to you on this. And you were reacting to somebody. And this is in reference to the crash that Newman had at the Daytona 500, which was a horrific crash. Yeah. But this is Dave's quote, by the way. A driver's crash has nothing to do with Republicans and Democrats. This is a human life, end quote. Let's face one thing. When we're driving down the highway and we see a wreck on the side, what's our first reaction? Oh, my God, I hope nobody is hurt. And that's what I got out of this with you. It's like this is about humanitarianism at this point. This is not a politicized thing. You see a wreck, you're praying that he walks out of there and he's okay. And I'm very happy that he's okay. He's not going to be driving for a while, but he's okay. And I thought, just a brilliant tweet, by the way.
Well, thank you. Yeah, because the NASCAR fans, lean very much to the Republican side. That's fine. Whatever you believe is whatever you believe. I'm on the sports side. I don't have to deal with that. But but social media has a way, you could well see, politicizing things very quickly. And Daytona, of course, President Trump was there, and it turned into a debate. I said, who cares about that? We have a guy who nearly died on national television. Exactly. At that point, we didn't know. I said, first of all, this is a guy with kids. This is a guy who has given it his all for a number of years. Yes. And, I saw him crash. I've seen him get into fights on the track, but it's because they have passion for this. They have passion for what they do, their families, and their fans. Let's just focus on him. Stop making this into something is. I don't care if he's left, right, red, blue. It doesn't matter. At that moment in time, all that mattered to me was that the guy was okay. I was working the phones hard that night because we had staffers in Daytona. I was able to make that trip, and just trying to get information from trackside crew. Is he okay? Yeah. Talking to crew members. And fortunately, it ended up being okay, but that's the one side of social media that now I can't even tweet about sports without someone trying to politicize it. Yeah. I'm like, just focus on whether the guy is okay or not. I'm glad he is. you know, you don't have to necessarily be a fan of him, but you have to respect the fact that he made it through all that and he's going to be okay. And he still wants to return to racing because he loves what he does.
Very well said. Dave Walls from ABC 13 in Lynchburg, Virginia. The website for the station, if anybody wants to follow it, is
SET.com, WSET.com.
Thank you very much. Dave, I definitely will have you back at some point, but this was very nice of you to do this under some extenuating circumstances. Thanks for bringing your A game here today, man.
Hey, great talking to you. Glad to talk sports again. It's been the weirdest 2 weeks I've ever dealt with, but always happy to help you out, my friend. Let's talk again soon, okay? Take care.
Absolutely. And that is part one of the two-parter that we're doing on March Sadness tonight on the A Game. We're going to be coming back in just a few minutes with Dave Popkin, the voice of Seton Hall basketball. Stay right here. You're part of the A Game with me, Rob Acampora.